Hey guys! Okay, so if you've been watching our social media recently, you would have seen that our plan with these videos is to help you understand what you can and can't do on a property from a town planning perspective, so that when you go to actually build a new house or renovate a house down the track, you don't have any nasty surprises. Now, if you saw the post that we put up last week, you would have seen that the plan for this week was to talk all about zonings. More specifically, I was going to focus on the 6 most common residential zones within Brisbane, and I was sort of going to give you insight into what the planning scheme does intend or support within each one of those zones. Basically, so that if you want to have a house area, you want to live in a house area, you don't unintentionally or accidentally buy into an area that is intended for units in the future. So you don't end up getting your cranky pants on when units pop up next door. Yeah, well, we decided to change things up a little bit today. We decided to jump ahead. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about services. Why? Well, if you'd seen our social media earlier this week, you would have seen that we went to a training session that Building Approvals and Advice put on about build over asset applications. So it seemed timely. Why not talk about it sooner rather than later? So yes, we're going to focus specifically on the design and cost implications of having service lines running through your property. So if that sounds like it interests you, stick around. Okay, so let's start with talking about what do I actually mean when I say services. Well, quite simply, I mean the sewer, the water and the stormwater pipes that run throughout city. So the pipes that are owned by Queensland Urban Utilities, also known as QU for short, or Brisbane City Council. So what do you need to consider when you want to build on or near these pipes? Well, let me start with a pretty little diagram. That's meant to represent the pipe. When it comes to building on or near these pipes, you have to pay someone to come up with a design that is going to bridge over that pipe. Why? Well, the onus is on you to demonstrate or prove that you will not compromise the ongoing function of that pipe through your building work. So in other words, you won't put too much pressure on the pipe and crack it or break it or block it, or you get the idea, all of those sorts of things. So yes, the onus is on you to pay someone to come up with a design that will prove you will not compromise the function of that pipe into the future. In addition to paying for someone to come up with the design, you obviously also need to fund the construction of that design, and the additional footings that go into that design can often cost a little bit more moolah, sometimes a little bit more than a little bit moolah. Now, the kicker is, if you happen to have any additional weird and wonderful things like manholes, jump ups, all that sort of stuff, often you cannot build over those things. So you have to pay to relocate those structures outside of the building pad, the building area. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is often when it comes to stormwater pipes, let's go back a step. In an ideal world, every single stormwater pipe across the city would be oversized. It would be designed to cater for the absolute worst possible flood event we could ever see. The reality is it would be an absolute waste of ratepayers' money for council to go around and oversize all of the stormwater pipes. It's just not financially feasible. So I think it's reasonable to expect that not every pipe is going to cater for every single storm event. Yes, they cater for the worst ones, the most common ones, I should say, not worst ones, most common ones. But every now and then you are going to have extra stormwater running down through the creeks and channels on top of those pipes. In that situation where you have the overland flow, you also need to design it so that the pipe, or the foundations I should say, sit up higher so that you have some clearance through there for the additional water to flow, so that basically the water doesn't hit the blockage and then divert off into the neighbours' properties and cause issues for them. So from a cost perspective, you've got to pay someone to design, you've got to pay for the actual extra works, you potentially have to pay to relocate certain features of those pipes. And then from a design perspective, in some instances, you need to be prepared to create what I like to call spaceships. So basically houses that are elevated up to allow the water to flow through. So they're the biggest issues you need to consider. Now, your next question naturally is going to be, how do I find out if this is an issue for me? How do I find out whether there is a pipe or pipes traversing my property? Well, quite simply, you can find out through a few different ways, but the most obvious one, or the best one I'd recommend, is a dial before you dig search. So just go to Google and type in dial before you dig. You do need to set up an account, but it's a free account, really straightforward. Go through, order the searches. They usually come through within a couple of minutes via email. That will actually send you a bucket load of different images which show, like I said, sewer, water, stormwater, as well as a heap of other things like electricity and all that fun sort of stuff. But the point of this video, if I can get my words out, the point of this video, we're just focusing on the sewer, water and stormwater lines. So basically you get those images, you look and you see whether you have any pretty coloured lines running through the property. If you do discover those pretty little lines, then the trigger or the next step for you is to jump on the phone or send an email to a civil engineer. You need to ask them first and foremost, can you physically build over that pipe? So if you plan to enclose under the house or extend to the rear with a deck or whatever, say, hey, this is what I plan to do. Can I physically do that over this pipe work? If the answer is yes, ballpark, rough figures, what are we looking at here? What do we need to budget for? Now, to give you an example, we had a client who's looking to renovate a property in Red Hill at the moment. So they're looking essentially to raise the house up and enclose under the existing dwelling. In that situation, we have a stormwater pipe running through the guts of the property. Now, the engineers have estimated it will cost an extra $15,000 to design and construct the bridging solution. Hey, 15 grand may not seem like so much money, but as you'll find out when it comes to renovation process, all of these little costs add up and become a bigger and bigger deal over time. So it's something you want to be aware of, ideally before you purchase the property, or if not before you purchase the property, before you start the design and construction process, so that potentially you can go in a different direction to avoid that pipe. Now, I think that covers everything I want to talk about. We talked about what the issues are from a design and cost perspective. We talked about how you find the information, gave you the Red Hill example. Yeah, I think that's everything. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.